Thank you, Jim. Nate Welsh's predecessor, Steve Howe, liked to say often, if you want to grow Vermillion, we need to make it interesting. And when Professor Chaya Gordon-Bland came to the university and Vermillion, she was bent on making it interesting. She's the artistic founding director of the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival, and she's here today to give us a presentation on what's coming up that we're all going to enjoy. I want to also point out that Chaya was selected as a Belbus Larson Award winner for a tenured professor. This is an award that is given to one faculty in the untenured area or tenure track and one in the tenured. And the individual is selected based on not just their teaching skills, but their overall commitment to the university and the community. With that, and Chaya was selected this year, and so we have the best of the best. Chaya, come on up here and tell us about Richard III.
No pressure, right? And then I have to adjust to my wee stature. Okay. Hello, good morning, good noon. It's wonderful to see everybody. Again, thank you so much for having me here. I like to come in once a year and share with the Vermillion Rotary about the progress and exciting happenings for the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival. It's nice to see so many familiar faces and so many faces of people who I know are supporters of us, but I am going to kind of give you the whole spiel. My name is Chaya Gordon-Bland. I am the founding and managing artistic director for the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival and also an associate professor of theater here at USD. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about the Shakespeare Festival. First and foremost, our mission, front and center. The mission of the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival, which I will abbreviate to SDSF from here on out, is to increase the cultural, artistic, and educational offerings of the state of South Dakota and our surrounding regions through professional Shakespeare performances and arts education programming delivered in a lively and accessible format. A little bit about the history. I might first of all add that Greg Huckabee is a co-founder and was our executive director for quite a few years, and his work and dedication to the festival will always be crucial to what we are and what we become, so thank you, Greg. We were founded in 2012, and since 2012, we've been offering free world-class Shakespeare in the Park here in Vermillion, South Dakota, accompanied by a wide array of education and engagement programming through partnerships with both local and regional schools and organizations. We value diversity and inclusion in our work, and we seek to create theater and build audiences that reflect and nourish the diversity of our communities and region. Accessibility is really at the heart of our mission. It's a very crucial component to our mission and approach, and we get at that in a number of ways. So all of our programming is offered at no cost to the public, or what we like to call free will, pun intended. So we do free will donation programming. We also perform in a beautiful public space here in Vermillion's Prentice Park, gorgeous amphitheater space, and the city partners with us to make that space really viable and open and available. We pay attention to accessibility in our performance style. We're well aware of some of the barriers that can exist when people first think about Shakespeare and how that can seem intimidating, and we try to really create a performance that is so well prepared and also prepared in a way that speaks to the people, as Shakespeare's work originally did. We also are looking at accessibility through our education and outreach programs and partners. So we're really looking to reach everybody. So rather than just reaching the people that we traditionally think of as being subscribers at theaters who pay, between $60 and $400 to go and see some polished theater in a dark proscenium space, we actually really want to invite everybody into the theater and into the experience of theater. And so we do that through working with a number of organizations, which I will talk more about later on. And finally, we think about accessibility also in the choices that we make in our casting and in our hiring, and what kinds of pictures we're putting on stage and what kinds of stories we're telling on stage, so that people, all kinds of people, can see themselves in those stories. In terms of our programming, the centerpiece of our programming are our productions in the park. It's, I think, what people most associate with us and are most familiar with is our summer productions. These are a very important part of our work. We're very proud of this. We offer world-class Shakespeare productions every June in the amphitheater space in Prentice Park. We bring together a company of artists hired from highly competitive national, regional, and local markets, and we engage approximately 1,000 people here in Vermillion each summer in the park that are drawn not only from our local communities, but throughout the region and also throughout North America. Just a few slides of photos from more recent seasons that perhaps are familiar to you, and I might also add these photos are taken by our company photographer Laura Vidler, who some of you know, and her photographic work is excellent and has been recently featured in the Shakespeare Theatre Association's Quarto magazine. Actually, it might be that photo on the upper right. And then from last year, no, it's that photo, the one in the top there. That was a half page in the most recent Quarto magazine. So, in addition to our production, I mentioned before our education and engagement programs. This is really the heart and soul of what we do and what people don't see as much and aren't as familiar with. And so our education and engagement programming not only happens in the summer, but throughout the school year, some of it in partnership with USD Theater. And our partners include SESDAC, the Sanford Senior Care Center, the Minnehaha Juvenile Detention Center up in Sioux Falls, USD's Upward Bound program, Flandreau Indian School, as well as the Wagner Community School. So we're working with a lot of organizations to offer theater and arts opportunities. Looking forward to this season, what's happening now, in case you hadn't heard or seen, and postcards are, of course, strewn across your tables, this season we are thrilled to present our first history play, Richard III. That will be taking place June 7th through 10th in Vermillion's beautiful Prentice Park. And just a little bit about the play. I saw how many hands were up. A lot of you haven't read it. That's great. That's great. Come and see it. What a great way to experience a Shakespeare play for the first time. In this gripping tale of political intrigue, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, entices us to join him on his treacherous climb to political power, chock full of drama, seduction, betrayal, and some of Shakespeare's most enticing characters. This play keeps us on the edge of our seats as we accompany Richard on his intoxicating ascent and turbulent demise. All of our artists are here. We're in our second week of rehearsals. We're over at the Fine Arts Building, rehearsing Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and most weekend days. Anyone is welcome to stop by, stop in, visit a rehearsal. We have 40 people in residence right now working towards this year's production. I might also add, I'm really excited about the particular design of this, and again, you can see it better on the postcard on your table than on the screen, but this postcard design was designed by Ash McGill, and I think they're beautiful. So take postcards with you. Also, we have t-shirts this year, so the similar design. Also looking at this year in terms of our education and engagement programming for this year, we have a lot going on. So we have a series of theater arts workshops for youth being offered on Thursday, June 7th. This time we're doing our workshops at the Vermillion Public Library. We have a Scholars in Conversation event, formerly known as the Scholars Roundtable event. This is hosted by USD's College of Arts and Sciences, and this will take place Saturday afternoon in the park at 3 o'clock. We're offering a post-show talkback with the artists following the Sunday matinee performance, as well as an array of collaborative programming with our partners. And again, all of these programs are offered at no cost to the public or free will donations, so please do come and enjoy. I do want to talk a little bit about the programs that are not in the public eye, but that we're doing this year with our engagement partners. So with SESDAC, we're going to be creating a visit to the theater spaces and a tour for clients of SESDAC. They're coming later this week. With Sanford Senior Care Center, as well as the Minnehaha Juvenile Detention Center, we are creating a short segment of a preview performance, scenes from Richard III, that will then be performed in these facilities, and that's happening next week. And actually, what's really exciting about that is we've been doing the preview performance for the Sanford Senior Care Center for a number of years, but this will be the first time that we're doing this particular model in the Juvenile Detention Center. So we were out there in the fall as part of the Shakespeare tour in collaboration with USD Theater, and we've done workshops out there, but we've never really brought them kind of this polished segment of South Dakota Shakespeare Festival's piece. So that's really exciting for those kids and for us. We're offering a full day of workshops for USD's Upward Bound. We're going to have 60 students from Upward Bound doing 3 workshops each, rotating through. And then also this year, a number of you know we've been working closely with the Flandreau Indian School for quite a few years now, and we've just started. Yesterday was their orientation. We're doing an apprenticeship program with the school this year. So 4 students from their summer school program are coming down and working with the festival 3 days a week over the course of the next several weeks, and they'll be working in the paint shop, in the costume shop. We have one student who'll be working with Laura on photography, and they'll be part of our company this season and working towards an even more robust partnership for next year. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes of really trying to touch lives through the theater. And who are the people that make this happen? There are a lot of people that make this happen, but everyone's always interested in the cast, so I'll share with you about the cast. So we have a lot of people in residence working with us right now. This is a sampling of our actors. This year, our actors are drawn from New York City, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and the Twin Cities, intermingled with artists from USD's theater program, both faculty and students. We also have 4 children from our local communities who are in the cast this year. So we have 2 from Vermillion and 2 from Sioux Center, Iowa, who are in the cast. Really excited about that. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end well for them in the play. We have our 4 high school apprentices from Flandreau Indian School working with the company, and we also have additional volunteers, both youth and adults, who have been helping out in our shops for about a total of about 40 people working to make all of this happen. And that does not even include our board of directors, our staff, and people who are working and active year-round. So it's a big team work. There's a really big piece of news that I wanted to make sure I shared with you today, looking forward to next summer and to our 2019 season. So we recently received news that we've received funding from the National Endowment for the Arts for our 2019 project. We're receiving a $10,000 grant in the Artworks category. And for those of you who are not familiar with the National Endowment for the Arts, this is the most competitive and most prestigious funding source in the arts. So even though $10,000 is not a very large amount of money, it's an honor to have a project recognized for its merit and potential and worth by the NEA and to be recommended for that funding. And we're really excited about what that project is. So we'll be doing a production in 2019 of A Midsummer Night's Dream that mindfully integrates Native artists and Native perspectives into the Shakespearean production process. And we're working on this project in collaboration with a number of key partners. One of them is Madeline Sayat, who is an acclaimed Shakespeare director of Mohegan descent. She's based in Connecticut and New York City, and she'll be directing the production. We'll also be incorporating in a very integrated way the Flandreau Indian School in that production. So the apprenticeship program will further develop. We'll have students from their school working both behind the scenes as well as possibly on stage, creating and performing music, possibly performing some of the smaller character roles. And then, of course, we'll also be looking to incorporate and include additional Native artists and cultural voices from around our region as we build this production. So stay tuned for more on that. But this is actually really a feather in the cap for all of Vermillion and for all of South Dakota. So be proud. Just mentioning the vision as we're always looking forward, as we're working here and in the future simultaneously. The South Dakota Shakespeare Festival is really focused on strengthening communities and increasing quality of life in Southeast South Dakota and throughout the Great Plains region through meaningful arts experiences. We're looking to continue to expand the accessibility of our work by mindfully engaging in conversations about accessibility and inclusion both on stage and off. None of this would be possible without tremendous support from our community, from our businesses, from our civic organizations. So I would just like to take a few moments to thank some of those key partners. Many of these organizations have representatives in the room right now, so thank you all so much. The South Dakota Arts Council, the City of Vermillion, USD's Upward Bound, Sanford Vermillion, the Vermillion Area Chamber and Development Company, United Way of Vermillion, Current 94.3 in Yankton, Print Print Source, the University of South Dakota, First Bank and Trust, the Vermillion Cultural Association, the Black Hills Playhouse, and Vermillion Rotary, just to name a few. We also, thanks to all of the local businesses that are part of this in all different kinds of ways, from donating to silent auctions to hosting events. There's a lot of community support. We are still actively fundraising. It's really important for me to say that. We usually, about this time of year, we've raised about $38,000 towards a $50,000 budget. That's usually where we're sitting this time of year when I talk to you. That's still true. So we have a gap to fill. I left some brochures on the table. If you're interested in partnering with us and investing in us, I'm happy to speak with you and to provide more information. And thank you. So thank you very much for your time and your support. Please do mark your calendars and come out to the park and see the production and be involved with the events surrounding the production. Take a postcard with you, take an extra postcard for your friends. And at this point, I would be happy to entertain questions. Yes, sir.
Hi, could you tell us a little bit about presenting Shakespeare today and what's going on
Sure. So the purpose of presenting Shakespeare today, well, this is an interesting phenomenon, right? Shakespeare of all playwrights. There are lots of amazing playwrights out there, but Shakespeare of all playwrights is produced all over the world and has been, since his time, and arguably will be well into the future. And what are the reasons for that? Everybody has a different answer. I think I have a different answer every day. But arguably, Shakespeare is writing about humanity and the human condition in a way that is gripping and compelling and relevant and resonant for us today. Something else is going on too, though, I think, that makes Shakespeare perhaps more important now than it ever has been, because in some ways the gap feels further, right? The further away we get chronologically, we can feel further away from the work, but also in terms of our society and how we are so tethered to technology and so bound to electronics and technology. We're actually further and further removed, not only from human to human communication, but from the spoken word, from the word that we speak, the word that we hear, from language that resides in the body. And language is emotional, language is intellectual, language is visceral. And so the live theater experience that brings human beings together to experience language in a visceral way, to go through, have a ride, have a journey, grapple with things that are difficult, laugh, cry, worry, stress, breathe together in a group, is a very, very special communal experience that is not emulated in very many other ways and is increasingly rare in our ever increasingly technological society. So that's my answer today. What was the second part of your question, George?
What was going on at the Globe?
Oh, what was going on at the Globe? People were throwing fruit and flirting with wenches, and the plays were happening in the middle of the day because there wasn't electricity yet, and so we had this universal lighting, like now, where we all share lighting together, and I can look you in the eye, and I can see how you're responding, and you can see how this guy's responding, right? We can all be in a space together, and everyone was coming to the theater, and Shakespeare was deliberately writing for every level of education and every level of socioeconomics. And so this idea that we have now of Shakespeare being something hoity-toity or elite or intellectual is actually just really, really falsely rooted. So people were coming, and language was being created through the plays, not just Shakespeare. Other playwrights were doing this as well. This was a formative time for early modern English. So he's not writing in Old English, it's early modern English, and the language was forming. And so playwrights were using language in new ways and wordsmithing, and people would come to the theater to hear that and to pick up on like what the latest, coolest turn of the phrase was. So words like hubbub and assassination and puke and lovely were created in Shakespeare's plays. So there was a lot of inventiveness and creativity and community happening in the Globe Theater. And I think there's a lot of that is what we're after here in Vermillion with South Dakota Shakes. Yes, Jerry Johnson.
As you know, we actresses that are home.
Thank you.
And visiting with her, I was fascinated because I noted sometimes how difficult it seems to be to understand the language as they're spoken. And I said, how difficult is that to actually memorize it? Mm-hmm. And she claims that it's actually easier to memorize the Shakespearean, and you might explain that.
Great. Great, yeah, I think at first that seems like a contradiction, but in fact, and I'm an actor as well by trade, although it's been a while since I've had a chance to play in the sandbox. Because the language is crafted and sculpted in such a specific and deliberate and intentional way, it actually becomes easier to memorize if you understand the reason for why each word was chosen and why each word was placed where it was placed in terms of the syntax of the line, then, I mean, I think it's like any other skill. If you're just memorizing something based on a pattern, and rote memorization, a lot of you in this room are educators, rote memorization, it doesn't stick. It might get us through the test, or it might get us through whatever interview we need to have, but it doesn't stick. But with any subject area, if we understand the way something works, I also used to be a chemist, so I think about this a lot in terms of organic chemistry. Like, if you understand why something happens the way it happens, then you know it, and you haven't memorized it, you've learned it, and you've learned it in a deep way. So I think there's a lot of that going on. And then the second part to that is rhythm. So because Shakespeare is writing in very particular rhythms, not all, but a lot of his portions of his play are in verse, in iambic pentameter. It's like music, right? We all memorize songs without thinking about it because the rhythm is catchy and the rhythm sticks for us. And the rhythm and rhyme are coupled together and we just memorize it. We don't think about it, it sticks. And so his rhythms, tapping into the rhythms also helps the music of the language kind of wash over us, and it makes it easier to learn. Great. Yes?
Do the actors and actresses who come to Vermillion get a stipend for what they're doing?
Yes.
Travel or any of those things?
Yes, that's a great question. So we are a professional company, so everybody is paid. Nobody is paid as much as they should be. So we do, all of our artists that come in for the festival are under contract and they receive a weekly salary. They are housed with local homestays, so thank you. Many of you in this room either currently are or have opened your homes in the past to actors, which is an amazing thing about our community, and their travel is reimbursed as well. We're really not paying very much. Like, that's kind of an understatement. So the artists who are working for us are doing it as much out of a passion and love for the work and a belief in the mission and importance of the company and the work, more than for the glamour and the paycheck. But yes, we are all paid when we make budget. Yes, sir.
Did I see that some of these were, they look familiar, some of your actors and actors?
Yeah.
So do you get people from New York and LA that come repeatedly year after year?
Yeah, you're right. We do have a couple of returners. So and I'm going to just flip the slide so you guys can have this cool image here. One of the, sorry, and I'm trying to look at people and be heard, so let's do that. One of the biggest compliments that we can receive is when people want to come back. And again, that's not just a compliment to us, that's a compliment to our entire community, right? That Vermillion is creating an experience for people where that they love being here, and they love coming, and they love working with us, and they love meeting all of you, and staying in your homes, and eating at your restaurants, and banking at your banks, and cycling on your bike paths, and all of that. And so yes, this year we have, actually I'll go back for a second, I'll point them out. We have a number of returners. So the guy in the center there, last year he was one of the clowns. He was Dromey of Syracuse. If you saw Comedy of Errors last summer and were there early enough to see the whole trunk shtick at the beginning, where he was climbing in and out of the trunk and getting people to carry it. So he has clown training. He's actually our Richard this year. So this is an actor that has an incredible range, depth, and scope. His comedic skills are top notch and his dramatic skills are incredible. So that's Jeff Robb, and he wanted to come back and is not being paid nearly enough, and we're very excited to have him. Another returner this year on the top row, which would be second from the left, Jordan Mitchell is both an alum of USD Theater and an alum of the South Dakota Shakes. So he lives and works in Minneapolis now. He's acting in Minneapolis, and he graduated a year ago from USD Theater, and he was in Comedy of Errors last summer. And then also on the top row, second from the right, is Mike Lee, who was one of the leads last year in Comedy of Errors. So we frequently have returners, and then there are some USD Theater students in the mix there as well. Actually, the three on the left are all from currently enrolled in the USD Theaters program. So it's really exciting for those of us who teach here as well to see those students blossom and earn themselves the opportunity in the company and then really hold their own and bring their own contributions to the company. Yes, Mr. Huckabee.
Have some of your actors moved on to Broadway?
Yes. So the big, claim to fame for everyone who knows Cody Strand. So for Cody Strand graduated from USD Theater in 2012. He played Touchstone for South Dakota Shakespeare Festival in As You Like It in 2012. And then he went on to star in the Book of Mormon and is actually still involved in that production. And so he's done the New York show. He's done the national tour. He was in London for a while, and I think he's back in New York now. Cody came to us very talented. But of course, all of us who've had the chance to teach him and direct him and work with him are very proud, and it is a really nice claim to fame. Thank you, Greg. Yes, sir.
Actually, another question. Yeah, I've been blessed with having the opportunity to learn a little bit. It's been interesting to be visiting with the young lady you have. She was talking about, of course, Richard III, everybody gets killed. It seemed to me anyway.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Everybody gets talking about training and how, you got to kill each other and the swords and so forth.
Oh, good. I'm glad you brought that up.
Who knows how to do that?
Okay, so I know how to do that. Anyone who doesn't know how to do that, put $1 on the table. Come on, all of you. So stage combat is its own specialized discipline that most people don't really think about. You watch film and you see violent scenes, and a lot of people just don't think about it. But it's its own very specialized discipline. So I have many years of training in theatrical combat, and this year I am doing the fights for Richard III, and I often do the fights for our shows. But it's, there are at least nine different weapons disciplines, and each show really has its own special demands. So the way that I like to work as fight director is to really look at the story. Well, not just let's make a fight that looks cool, which is usually what the audience just sees is a fight that looks cool, but we actually try to build story into it. What's happening here in the story that needs to be told, and how do we tell that through the fight? So we had broadsword and sword and shield training on Sunday and Monday, and we'll be doing some dagger work today with the murder of Clarence. Another spoiler there, Clarence gets murdered. And tomorrow is another fight. So it's actually a very intensive process. Also, most of our actors are not combat trained in this cast, which makes it a lot more time consuming to get the fights ready, because we can't just teach them the fights. We actually have to train them in the discipline and the form. Yes.
So you said this is the first historical Shakespeare, based on actual true events, right?
Ish.
I think a lot of people think of Richard III as this villain, the hunchback, whatever, king, murdered his accused or whatever and all this stuff. But it seems like he's kind of had a little bit of the actual historical figures have a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
50 or 100 years, realized that Shakespeare sort of did a number on him.
Yeah.
Especially because they actually found real Richard III underneath the parking lot, a few years ago. And
Yes.
he interred him and everything, that sort of brought up interest. And I'm wondering if now that you're doing the historical play, has that kind of come up?
Yeah, absolutely. It comes up all the time. So a couple things. First of all, Jesse, do you want to give a plug real quick about the next Vermillion Cultural Association play that's about this? Film screening under the car park? Do you know it offhand? Okay, I have it. Well, there is a film screening coming up hosted by the Vermillion Cultural Association that is exactly about this topic. But the thing is, you're absolutely right on all points. So Shakespeare's plays are roughly categorized into comedies, tragedies, and histories. And then sometimes people will have a category called the romances or the problem plays that don't easily fit into one of those categories. But the history plays by no means are historically accurate. And just because we kind of know more about this one right now doesn't mean that any of them are, right? So they're loosely based on British history, and Shakespeare very liberally borrows these characters and situations and then tells the story in his own way to make the point that he wants to make. So yes, for sure. We should not take this play as a history lesson about British history per se, but we can take this play perhaps as, how do I want to phrase this in this room? There are lessons in whether that history that he told is accurate or not, and it's not. There are lessons inside this story that definitely pertain to our own day and age now. And yeah, we definitely don't want to get too caught up in historical fact and accuracy, because there are some great liberties taken. Yeah, great. Is there anything else? Yes, sir.
Do you have a second location in case the weather is bad?
That's a great question. So I usually put Greg in charge of weather. And so far, we're doing pretty well with that. And then he usually delegates that out to someone else, so watch out. I think it's John Prescott usually. So for a while, we had the Vermillion High School as a backup space, as a rain space, but we're not really doing that. We're kind of a rain or shine. We will call the show if conditions are hazardous. So if there, is lightning or I guess heat, excessive heat, then we would call a show because we want to keep everyone healthy and safe. But we actually can and do perform in the rain, and people still come because the productions themselves, the way that we build the production really is designed for that outdoor environment and that really public interactive environment. We could move it indoors. We haven't. So it's a great question. And then we just do a lot of checking the weather and crossing our fingers and spinning over our shoulders and all of those things. Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. We'll see you in the park.